The following episode of the Maui Chamber of Commerce's Business Matters was originally broadcast on July 1st, 2025.
Welcome to Business Matters, brought to you by the Maui Chamber of Commerce. And now here's your host, the president of the Maui Chamber of Commerce, Pam Toompop. Good morning, Pam.
Hey, good morning, Gary. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well. I woke up on the right side of the grass. That's a good thing.
Thank God
Yes.
for all of us. Yeah, well, that always is very important. I hope to constantly do that for the next 40 years.
At least.
I'm planning on living to over 100 these days.
There you go.
With modern medicine, it might get there. Well, thank you for all that you do for our show. It's always a treasure to be with you every Tuesday morning, and we so appreciate all of your efforts. And welcome, everybody, to Business Matters. We are so excited today to have a wonderful show and connect with the director of the Department of Housing, Remi Mitchell, and discuss his department's role in improving housing on Maui. And in Maui County. Of course, he's the director of the Maui County Department of Housing. And, talk about the challenges that the department is facing, given the crisis we have here, get up to date on future housing on Maui. And we'll also talk with Mike Palmer, who is the director of the Hawaii Restaurant Association, and talk about the current status of the food service industry, how some recent legislation aims to help out restaurant owners and patrons alike, and some of the ways his association has helped and continues to help Lahaina. So it's going to be a fast-paced and fun-filled morning, but I'm really excited to first welcome Remi Mitchell, the director of the Maui County Department of Housing, which was launched on July 1st, 2024. It was following the November 2022 charter amendment that separated housing from human concerns. So it previously was one larger department. And Remi brings a multidisciplinary background in architecture, planning, and law. He earned a Bachelor of Architecture from Cornell, an MUP from the University of Michigan, and a JD from Syracuse. He practiced architecture across London, New York, and Seattle before settling over 2 decades into real estate law. Remi joined Maui County in 2019 as a legislative attorney, starting as the acting director of the department when it launched. And today, Director Mitchell oversees a $75 million budget, a 39-person team across 4 divisions, which are administrative, county programs, federal programs, and housing and community development. So it's a wide scope. Good morning, Director Mitchell. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Pam. I'm doing well. Glad to be on board, and I look forward to our conversation this morning.
Thank you. Me as well. I've been watching you in the Housing Committee and really enjoying the conversations. And I particularly enjoyed one day when you were sharing mortgage calculators and helping people understand how it all works and that the tools were easily accessible. So
yeah, I was a little surprised to get that question. Those calculators are all over the internet, so I was surprised the members were asking me about that.
Well, and when you had the chance to share that with them, you had already done all the homework and gave them all of the parameters and really helped them see and understand, the how nuanced it actually is and all the things they need to know to put into the calculators to get the right information out. So that was awesome, and I think it was a great overview for the community as well, for people who weren't familiar with that, as many people are looking for housing, as you know, and planning for housing and need tools like that to kind of get a sense of what they can afford and what they're ready for. So I thought that was an awesome educational overview of what was available and to help people get started. Given the department itself, there are many people that testify on a regular basis or are watching housing that have been watching what you're doing. But for many in the public, they may not understand exactly how this, bifurcation of the department worked. And if you can give us an overview of the department, the portion that you're running now, and some of the programs and initiatives under the Department of Housing, and what are some of the main areas of concerns that you're dealing with as you look at those priorities?
Certainly. Well, the department, as you indicated in your opening, launched a year ago today. So
Wow.
we're celebrating our 1 year anniversary. And it was previously part of the Department of Housing and Human Concerns. And both the human concerns and the housing portion split off and became two separate departments. So the new Department of Housing has 4 divisions specifically, one of which is brand new and still under development. We have our administrative division, which is our leadership team, myself, my deputy, private secretary, our HR, our human operations person. We have our federal division, which manages our Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program, our Home Investment Partnership Program, and our Housing Trust Fund Program. And in addition to that, it also manages congressionally funded programs or projects. Then we have the County Housing Programs Division, which has a lot of grants that it provides for the community. And then finally, the newest division is the Housing and Community Development Division. And that division, we're still standing up, and it is going to be focused on really developing county lands for affordable housing. Besides the administrative division and the other 3 divisions, we have now appointed, as of yesterday, an administrator for the Federal Housing Programs Division. And last week, we appointed an administrator for our County Housing Programs Division. And we are in discussion with a number of candidates for our Housing and Community Development Division. So we will soon have an administrator for that division too. But those are the 4 divisions: administration, federal housing, county housing, and housing community development within the Department of Housing. And it has been a challenge to, as you can imagine, in a year, get them all fully staffed up and functioning, and we're still working through that process. You also mentioned talking about some of the programs in the department, and I can pivot to that now if you'd like me to.
Yes, please.
So there are a number of programs designed to help the community in our departments, and without regard to where those programs are in the 4 divisions I mentioned, I'll just rattle through a few of them. We have our rental assistance program, and in this year's fiscal year 26 budget, the county has, the council has provided additional funding to that program to help local renters secure and maintain housing while they work on becoming more economically self-sufficient. We have the first-time home buyers program, and that provides funds for local residents to cover the costs of the down payments for acquisition of their first home. And we have, as the community may know, a new deed restriction program that we're about to stand up. That was passed recently, Ordinance 5803, Bill 57. And that's a voluntary deed restriction program that is going to, once we fully flesh it out and stand up, mirror some of the similar programs on the mainland, and where the county provides a certain amount of money to homeowners to assist with perhaps home repairs or other things, and in fixing up their homes. And in exchange for that funding, they provide the county with a deed restriction for the home to keep the home affordable for successive buyers. Yes. We have the much talked about Ohana Assistance Program, which has had some challenges in getting up and running, but I'm glad to say that a couple of weeks ago, we issued the notice of awards to all of the initial awardees. And that program provides up to $100,000 in funding to assist homeowners who depending on the size of their primary residence and the home on their lot, have the capacity to build an ohana. And so I'm glad to see that we finally got the notice of awards for that program out. And there are some additional programs that we're looking into, such as a ground lease-back program, where individuals who may have suffered through the devastation of the wildfires are not ready or able to build on their property, where the county could assist them by ground leasing their property and then placing a prefabricated or modular home on their property, lease it back to them, or lease it to other residents during a period that the landowner is unable to use the property, but give them the ability to either buy out the lease or lease it themselves. We also, as you know, with our Housing Community Development Division, are really focused on land acquisition and development within the county. We have a 23-acre parcel in central Maui that the county owns and that we're working on redeveloping. We have a very large acreage in South Maui beside the police station that we're also looking at redeveloping. And then a couple of other parcels that we're under discussion with the landowners in West Maui and upcountry. But all of those parcels will need some infrastructure work, which is the precursor to everything, whether it's sewer work, whether it's water expansion, water use, getting water service to those lots. That's really the precursor to being able to build affordable housing. Something else that isn't in our department that I think is worth noting here is that the Department of Public Works is looking into legislative proposals to make it easier to use prefabricated and modular homes on a long-term basis. And that's critical to what the work the Department of Housing is doing. And I can explain that later when we talk about how long it takes to historically get a stick-built home built in the county. And while this also isn't in our departments, we are collaborating with the Department of Water Supply and Department of Environmental Management on the R1 water distribution expansion capital improvement projects, because as you can imagine, the more we get our large water users to be able to use R1 water, the more potable water we have available for affordable housing.
Yeah,
and so those are some of the programs both in our department and other initiatives we're working on to really advance the development of affordable housing in the county. And I'll pause there just in case you have any questions.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, I really appreciate the overview of that because, again, this is an audience that, you know, many of them are watching a lot of these issues and many of them aren't. And for those who aren't, you know, there's been some great movement. I love that you mentioned the Ohana Assistance Program, where people can build an ohana on their lot if they have it. I know that there was an array of people who had been approved, so I'm thrilled that is moving forward now, and that is out, and I'm really excited about that. And somebody brought up to me the other day with respect to, you were talking about the wastewater and, you know, working with, we keep hearing about, of course, especially in Lahaina, the challenges in Lahaina with water, and the wastewater has long been an issue. And one of the people I was talking to with respect to getting housing built had mentioned, you know, the project with Mike Atherton and, you know, the housing that could be developed, but also the sewage treatment plant moving and building out there. And one of the things that was brought up to me was, you know, that was already an approved project. And as we're looking at other money for infrastructure and things, I get that it's not in Lahaina, but one of the things that came up was that if that moved forward, it would really help some of the other developments in the other area that you were talking about also come online in central Maui. Where is that project at in terms of since as you're connecting with the other departments, and I know you might not know specifically as that's under, the Department of Public Works, but if you do you have an overview on how that's being looked at as how that could be a resource to other connections and other housing development that would connect to that?
Thanks for the question. Great question, because you're touching on the issue of the coordination across county departments, which is crucial to the development of affordable housing. And you're also, in the question, touching on the administration's number one priority, which is Kama'ana housing, and making sure that we, as an administration across several departments, are advancing the work we all separately do with the view to make sure that housing gets developed. So the administration as a whole is focused on prioritizing all sorts of critical infrastructure, including the Waiala Road and North-South Collector Road extensions, which will expand the capacity for housing. So that's important to mention. DWS is prioritizing water source development across the county, and they can speak to each of the projects they're focused on better than I can. But the purpose there is obviously to expand access to potable water. The Department of Environmental Management is also focused on its R1 water distribution expansion and has a number of projects across the county that they're focused on. And they're also prioritizing the expansion of wastewater capacity, such as the new aeration basin at the Wailuku Kahului Wastewater Reclamation Facility, and an all-new Central Maui Wastewater Reclamation Facility. So those are examples of how the administration is ensuring that all of its funding decisions are made to advance its number one priority, which is Kama'ana housing. Now, your question also touched on some West Maui recovery issues, and so I want to pivot there for a quick second. Now, as you know, we've received a significant amount of money through a community development block grant disaster recovery to help with the recovery for the West Maui and upcountry. And those monies are going to be targeted in such a way that they will result in production of multifamily housing. And the Office of Recovery is taking the lead on its multifamily rental housing new construction program, which is targeted to produce 370 new units. And if my recollection serves me, at least 51% of those units will serve low to moderate income housing. And all of that can be found in the CDBG DR, the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Action Plan. And that should be accessible on the county's website. They're also focused on the single-family new construction program that will provide funding through subsidies or loans for the development and construction of approximately 115 new homes for first-time home buyers. And then there's the Home Buyer Opportunity Program. As you can see, there's lots of different programs across the county that will offer financial assistance to approximately 150 or so fire-impacted residents who do not currently own a home. But both the single-family and the home opportunity programs will have an affordable period and are projected to recoup the costs of the programs, allowing for the recoup costs to create a permanent fund to develop even more permanent housing. So it's not just the wastewater infrastructure or just the road infrastructure or just the water infrastructure. It's all of it together that we're working on in a coordinated fashion, because that infrastructure is critical before we can ever get to building the housing.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that, because again, as you say, it's a heck of a dance. There's so many parts, and there was a period in our history where we just weren't building for quite a period of time. So it's good to see that things are really being expedited and moving it forward. And I'm so excited to see that. One of the things, and as you're sharing that, Remi, is we're talking about some of these new projects and things coming online. People always ask, is there, I get that with the work of the Office of Recovery, it sounds like they've got that up and that people can learn about these programs. One of the things we hear about is there like an overall housing tracker? I know we asked this a couple of years back when Samala was talking with Tasha. Yeah, something that where people can see different programs and how many units are going to be able to come online or different developments, what's up and coming, what do they look like, and so people can be projecting forward. Is anything like that in the works?
Another great question, Pam, and thankfully I have an answer.
Oh, good. Yay.
So the department has been working on a variety of things, and one of which is launching on the housing department's website what you are calling a tracker, what I will call simply a list of the projects that are in the pipeline, the AMIs they will serve, the units that are, the unit types that are part of the project, when construction will start, when it's projected to be completed, so that we can democratize the information and just make it public, as opposed to have it on various documents and various plans and things that make it really hard to track. So I can't anticipate as we speak when that site will launch. That page on our website will launch. But what I will say is that our IT department, our consultants are furiously working on it so that we can make it public and accessible to everyone. But what I will say before that page launches is that we have a large number of projects in the works that are slated to produce about 1,200 affordable housing or workforce housing units. So that's an enormous number of units in the pipeline. And these are projects that have either been funded through the 2026 budget, affordable housing plan, or the general fund. And I'll just rattle off some of the names of the projects so that the community is aware of them. So we have, as you know, the Haleo Pi'ikea projects, phase 1, 2, and 3. We have the Kahalani Affordable Apartments. We have the Kaiulu Ola'anai project. We have the Kahaleo Kahila Hilu, phases 1 and 2, Kaiulu Onapili project. And those are slated to produce about 205 additional workforce and affordable housing units. In this year's budget, as you may recall, the council funded through general funds the Lipoa apartments and affordable housing funds through the Lipoa apartments and the Kilahana Makai workforce housing project. And those should produce an additional 140 affordable housing units. And then finally, we have the Kaiulu Lanai water and wastewater infrastructure project that was funded. Additional monies were appropriated for the Lahaina Community Land Trust. We are working on the old Hagai Institute building conversion, which is now called Haleolei, and that's on Lipoa in South Maui. And then we have the Kilahana Makai workforce housing project. So we have a large number of projects that we're working on. And again, as I said in the beginning, in aggregate, all of those are slated to produce about 1,200 additional affordable housing and workforce housing units. So there's a large number in the pipeline, and the information I just rattled off will be part of what will be on our website.
Remi, that's fantastic. I'm sorry, the station has a quick commercial break that they're going to do. Well, it takes actually a couple minutes, but we will come back. So please hang on for us. And I really appreciate the workforce housing overview. We'll be right back after their break. Thank you, everybody. We're just back, and I appreciate everybody hanging tight as we were in this engaging discussion about workforce housing. As we are, looking at where our economy is at today and where we've been since the wildfires, and also coming off of COVID. Prior to the wildfires and coming off of COVID, everybody was really looking at the need to press forward with economic development and diversity. And so I wondered if you could touch upon how important workforce housing is if we're seeking to do economic development and diversity, how important housing is in trying to build out those markets and the sectors. And I know that there's a lot of effort focused on how we can create industries that will utilize our local workforce without importing other people in, but diversify our workforce here. But seeing so many people, of course, having to leave the islands, definitely some of them from the wildfires and some of them from the economic downturn. Can you touch a little bit about how that is being worked into the housing program and where you see housing helping us to not only retain workers, but also help to diversify our economy?
Thank you, Pam, for the question. As you know, every time I'm before a council committee, in particular the Housing and Land Use Committee or council itself, I always try to address this issue of economic diversification in housing. We need to be able to provide housing for our workforce. We also need an economy that allows our workforce to earn wages that allow them to afford housing in the marketplace. And while that body of work is outside of the responsibility of the Department of Housing, it is important for the Department of Housing and all of the other departments, in my opinion, who are working on the administration's Combined Housing Priority to really talk about economic diversification, which is both in the council's purview and in the state legislature's purview. Yeah. And what I've often said is that it's very easy for us to look at our housing prices and recognize our housing prices are commensurate with those in San Francisco. But unlike San Francisco, our workforce is largely low income with respect to the industries we work in, such as tourism, recreational, hotel industries, unskilled labor industries. And we have about 75% of our population in that category because of our local economy. Whereas if you look at San Francisco, it's a much more diversified economy with higher income potential, and therefore there's a fundamental difference in the capacity of individuals to purchase those homes. So we have to solve that conundrum. Otherwise, we will continue to lose our residents and the vitality of our community. And that's something that needs to be solved, which I've indicated repeatedly as I meet with council members as part of the conundrum of figuring out how to build more housing.
Yeah, absolutely. You have been a great advocate for that. Coming from a background in high-tech development and working on that for many years for high-tech Hawaii and high-tech Maui, we had different opportunities, unfortunately, and they just weren't followed up with continued investment. And so I appreciate you also sharing that it's a huge state issue, and we're one of the hardest states in the nation to do business in. So it's a lot of revisions, and many of it, actually most of it, I would say, will come down to in terms of attracting different industries, addressing our business climate. So I greatly appreciate that, and I appreciate you sharing that. Sadly, we are running out of time, but I would like to, I don't know if you can because it's such a weighty issue, but and I'd love to have you back on the show, Remi, because we have so much more to talk about. But if you could talk just briefly about the 2026 plan that was recently approved, And we've kind of talked about maybe some of the projects already being funded under that. But how do you see the plan just affecting housing overall?
So when you say the 2026 plan, are you referring to the affordable housing plan?
Yes.
So as we discussed earlier, I listed the projects that are on the boards, if you will, or in the books. And we are working with each of the project proponents and developers to ensure that those projects move along. There's only so much we can do to push those projects along, but when it comes to funding support, or when it comes to assistance with coordination across several county departments that they need to work through to get the projects moving forward, I generally step in whenever I get a call from the developer to give them assistance to make sure we can streamline the communication across several departments to the benefit of the projects. And that's going to be ongoing, and it's part of the charter mission of the Department of Housing to play that coordinating role.
Well, I deeply appreciate that. And of course, I know, we're working on permitting and getting that streamlined as well. And so I deeply appreciate all of your efforts. And we have so much more to talk about. So, but we also have another guest coming on. So if you don't mind, I'd love to reach out to you again and have you back on the show.
It was a pleasure talking with you, Pam, and you know where to find me, so we can talk and reschedule sometime, okay?
I would love that. I think you need your own whole show. Such a huge topic. I apologize. We will definitely reach out to you, Remi. Thank you so much. It's been great to have you on. All
right. You have a wonderful morning. It's a pleasure.
I will. You do the same. Thank you. Right, aloha.
Bye. Aloha.
Bye. Aloha. Oh, we could go a whole hour, but I'm also really excited to have Mike Palmer, who is the director of the Hawaii Restaurant Association. It's a trade group that represents over 4,000 eating and drinking establishments across the entire state of Hawaii. And under his leadership on the Hawaii Restaurant Association board, he now serves as incoming chair, and he is actively advancing key legislative issues to address the challenges and concerns for the restaurant industry. His operational expertise and leadership have helped navigate industry challenges from supply chain issues to tourism-driven pivots. Mike is also owner and managing partner of Ho'okipa Partners, known for launching the Kuhio Avenue Food Hall in Waikiki, which is an innovative dining venue featuring 10 restaurant concepts and 3 bars. Aloha and good morning, Mike. How are you this morning?
Aloha. Great. How are you doing?
I am wonderful. We so appreciate you joining us this morning.
It's my pleasure and honor. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. There has been so much going on with the restaurant industry, which has been in a perpetual state of recovery mode since COVID hit, and especially on Maui after the aftermath of the wildfires and loss of so many restaurants on Front Street. And, I know that one of the small victories people don't know much about recently came with the outdoor dining ordinance. Can you talk a little bit about this rule that's meant to help businesses? It was started during the pandemic, but why it's something that we should keep around for decades to come?
Yeah, absolutely. This is, we were very happy because we were advocating for this. There was a temporary ordinance that came about in the city and county of Honolulu during the pandemic to help restaurants, obviously, that lost a lot of seating due to the social distancing requirements. So a restaurant that might have had 20 or 30 tables now reduced to 15 or 10 tables obviously impacts their sales, bottom line, everything. And I think anybody that was eating out during the pandemic experienced that, these huge half-empty restaurants. So during the pandemic, they had a temporary allowance where they would allow people or restaurants to set up tables and chairs on public sidewalks, so long as they didn't interfere with, ADA requirements and people's walking and wheelchairs and things like that. But it was a huge win for restaurants that they allowed that, because it allowed these restaurants that had less seating to increase their seating, and a lot of restaurants, especially here in Honolulu, Oahu, took advantage of it. And then we, thought as we're coming out of the pandemic, the restaurants still had years to recover, and we started advocating to make that a permanent ordinance. If a restaurant applied and then they met certain requirements by, the health department, city and county, and the liquor commission, that they would get approved to have these additional outdoor seats on public property. And it did pass this year. It passed a couple months ago, and we were very excited. And, I encourage, restaurants, there's plenty of restaurants that aren't taking advantage of it. And then my understanding is that we're still advocating for it to happen on Maui. It hasn't yet, but I've heard a lot of good things from legislators that most people are for it. They don't see any reason why restaurants suffered enough. And if it doesn't interfere with traffic and foot traffic patterns, or obstruct the walkway, why not? So we're hoping this continues and we see it opened up on Maui as well.
Well, we hope so too, because as you know, many restaurants did significant modifications during COVID to allow for that, and made sometimes structural improvements to their operation, so that they could open ways and have people or set up courtyards and where they had land and do some additional outdoor seating, and so for them, it would really be nice to continue, because it was a tremendous help. And, we didn't see a lot of traffic impact. We didn't see a lot of negative impacts. I mean, there are some tight areas, but it was something that people truly enjoyed. And I know many people on Maui are saying, we want to still sit in those. Some people really prefer sitting outdoors as well.
Yes, absolutely. It's funny how few restaurants, when you look at it, how few have a lanai or outdoor seating. And I know when I go out, I love to sit outdoors, and a lot of them, if you have pets, they'll even let pets sit out, on the lanais and things like that. But yeah, we live in such a great climate. The weather's, pretty much the best weather on the planet year round. And so outdoor seating, a lot of people actually prefer it, which is great. So we're really, pushing and hoping that we can make this a permanent feature in Maui as well. So fingers crossed.
Well, we are here to support you. So, let's connect after this, because it's an important area for us as well. And, and as you point out, we're getting a little more modern here. We're not starting to see pets going to the restaurants, and some of those things helped us do that. This kind of activity helped us do that. And you see it all over the mainland. So it was a great step forward, and people really enjoy, as you've mentioned, sitting outdoors. So we're here to help support that.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
You bet. Happy to do it. That's legislative advocacy is one of our key things that we do over here. So we really would be glad to work with you on that. And let's discuss, if you don't mind, Senate Bill 2784 that seeks to end the employer-paid deferment for tipped employees. Can you help people understand what the act does, why it was a bad idea, and kind of some of the misunderstandings around the bill that you would like people to understand and learn more about?
Yeah, absolutely. That is something we're looking to prevent from going through. I want to say it was pre-pandemic, 7 years ago, I believe, when they actually passed the employee tip credit, which allowed restaurants to take or continue to take it basically allows employers to pay certain workers less than minimum wage, and that's tipped employees, let's say servers, bartenders, anybody who participates in a tip pool, things like that. And there are very strict requirements, because what it says is they need to make a certain amount of money before that's okay. So, for example, a lot of people don't realize that tipped workers can make, 25, 30, up to $50 an hour. A lot of them don't realize that. And it's a huge break for employers, because, we want people to have a living wage and to make money too. But what it does, it allows them to increase wages of, say, kitchen workers. That's what a lot of restaurant owners do is they'll pay a higher wage to the kitchen staff who aren't tipped employees. So, because the front of house is making good money and a good living, and it allows restaurants, it takes some of the pressure off them with all the laws that have passed. Minimum wage has been raised twice already in the past couple of years. Coming January 1st, minimum wage is increasing another $2 to $16 an hour. So it is a huge hit to restaurant owners and even retailers that pay minimum wage. Now, one thing I always tell people is, most good business owners don't pay minimum wage. They know in order to be competitive in the job market, you have to offer a good benefits compensation package. And pay is definitely some of that. But I mean, I'm sure you see it all over Maui. You'll see fast food places that are paying $17, $18 an hour to start. They got big posters in their windows. So, if you have a restaurant and you're offering minimum wage, it's going to be a lot harder for you to find workers. But what this does allow is, and a lot of restaurants take advantage of, is paying slightly less than minimum wage to tipped employees. So I hope that explains it for you and your listeners. But, sometimes we sound like we're the big bad evil, corporation that wants to pay people less. But in reality, what it is trying to make it more fair for our employees. And again, it's a free country. If they don't want to work for the wages that employers are offering them, they don't have to. So employers have to be competitive. This just allows them to be competitive in a different way. So this bill was trying to get rid of that tip credit, which we were against. So that's why it got deferred, which we were happy about. And, hopefully it'll not go through in the future. But for now, it's restaurants are still allowed to take advantage of the tip credit.
Yeah. And I appreciate really the education. Oftentimes, again, a lot of people don't have time to follow the state legislative process. And if you're in the industry, you understand more about this. If you're not in the industry, you don't really understand what this is all about. But what I really love is that you're sharing with us the education behind it. And I appreciate that, Mike, because I don't think many people know if they weren't following the bill or reading about it in the news. And I don't think it got the coverage it got really left a different kind of opinion. But again, balancing out, I was a waitress. So I was a waitress when I was 18. I feel everybody should have a server role in their life because it teaches you a lot. But I remember people would come in, some of the cowboys would come in, and I would serve them a cup of coffee. And back then the coffee was 50 cents. And I would be tipped, $2.50 to $5 just for serving a cup of coffee. And, so you can make a considerable amount of money. But what I love is that you're saying the way that the restaurants are managing it is to understanding that servers can make a considerable amount of money. But what about the back end of the house, right? Without the back end of the house contributing and making good wages as well, they're a critical part of the operation. So I appreciate how you're looking at that, and it's sort of, how do we level this out to yes, make sure the servers are well taken care of, and they're going to be well taken care of by the patrons and the people they serve, as well as take care of the overall operation. And I think that that's a really important educational aspect that people need to consider and think about and understand.
And I'm glad you said that, because we said, one of our goals was not just getting out there and being noisy and loud about it. It was really meeting one-on-one with legislators and explaining our side of it. And, a lot of them have never worked in a restaurant, unlike yourself. They haven't ever owned a business. And so when we explained to them, like I just did, they're like, oh, I didn't realize that. Oh, I didn't understand, that's how it works. And that's really, a lot of it was just educational. And they did get to see the big picture kind of thing. Because, like I said, if you just look at it on the surface, it looks like, well, of course, why would you let them pay somebody less than minimum wage? But it's really to help offset restaurants, because, it is like the margins that are so bad in restaurants. People get into it for a labor of love. It's not really because they want to get rich. It's really they're passionate about serving people. They're passionate about food, and the combination of both and hospitality. And people love eating out. It's a huge thing. And we lost so many restaurants after the pandemic, during the pandemic, and then Maui, of course, had a double whammy with the fires.
Yeah.
Lost so many restaurants, and it's heartbreaking. But these restaurants, most of them want to open back up. And well, there's other challenges facing them now. I don't know if we want to get into it, but we can.
Well, I wish we could, but we will have you back because I know that it's a huge discussion, and we live it every day. And we had Director Remi, who is the director of our new housing department, and talking a little bit about some of those issues. So we will have you on again so we can talk about that in more depth. Let's talk a little bit about, and we've only got a few minutes left, but let's talk a little bit about how the economy plays a huge role in the success of the entire industry and some of the challenges this year has presented for the industry overall. And what are some of the biggest things you're working on? And how are we addressing the concerns of the operators of food establishments across the state?
Yeah, I mean, it is that the economy has, for everybody, we know it's been, I don't want to say turmoil, but it's been very unpredictable, up and down. Tourism has been impacted by it. And that's one thing we're feeling across the state. I know in Waikiki, even at my restaurant, we have had, since coming out of COVID, every year, sales have been better year over year. This year, starting about 3 or 4 months ago, sales were less than the prior year. And that is the trend. I talk with restaurants daily, business owners, and it's not just restaurants, it's retailers as well. And that is tied directly to tourism being down. And over last year, Waikiki, the hotel occupancies are down pretty much across the board. And it's impacting the economy. There's less tourists here. They're not spending. The tourists that are coming are spending a little more, but it doesn't make up for the lack of tourists. So, and when people ask me, well, why don't you think tourists are coming? It's not necessarily Hawaii's fault. It is more of, if you're living on the mainland and you're planning a vacation and you're not sure what's happening with your 401k, your retirement, or the value of the dollar in general, a lot of people are altering their vacation plans, taking more affordable vacations, not spending as much, having staycations or shorter trips, domestic trips, things like that. So that's what we've been noticing, and this summer is unfortunately not as good as, the last 3. So those are some of the things we're seeing. And how do we counteract that? That's a great question. And I know, the Hawaii Tourism Authority and the hotels and the airlines are all trying to, advertise and bring tourists out to cover that gap. But, it's more reactive than proactive, and we'll see. We only got a couple months of the summer left, but I still think we're very fortunate in Hawaii. It's always going to be a top destination. We still haven't seen the Japanese visitors come back either, and that's tied to the yen, of course, the value of the yen. So we're missing them as well. But everybody's feeling it. And then on top of that, you've got the costs, of everything has gone up from COVID, and that affects even just everyday people, not just business owners. We've all seen the price of whether it be eggs or milk or anything. Everything has gone up. I can't think of anything that hasn't.
Yeah. No, it really has been a challenging time, and we appreciate that you are on the front lines working with the restaurants and trying to keep them whole. Mike, we're going to reach out to you after this to connect so that we can talk about some of the legislative things and how we can be of service, and just appreciate having you on. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for being here. And sadly, everybody, that's all the time we have today. But I hope you've enjoyed the show. And we hope you'll join in again next Tuesday for Business Matters right here on KAOI. Aloha and a hui ho.